Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. As always, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for any of our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate, just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions, and we will try to get to as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. Also at the end of today's webinar, we are going to be doing a drawing for 4 $100 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. We also have 2 polling questions during today's webinar, so hopefully we can get everybody engaged. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is 0 to 1,000 plus applications, large-scale CD adoption at Cisco with Spinnaker and OpenShift. Our speakers today are Balaji Siva, who is a VP of Product at OpsMx, sorry about that. Anil Anaberumutt, who is the Technical Systems Architect at Cisco Systems, and Vikas Grover, who is the Senior Solutions Architect at Red Hat. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited about this webinar.
Thank you, Charlene. My name is Balaji. I run products at OpsMx, and thank you for attending this session on a Friday. Happy Monday, happy morning, evening, or afternoon, and I hope everybody's healthy. I'm excited today to welcome Anil from Cisco. We have done the journey for 2 to 3 years now, and they've transformed their CD deployments from the legacy products to a Spinnaker based on OpenShift. And also, I'm excited to welcome Vikas, who is part of our OpenShift team. We are partners with Red Hat, and excited to welcome Vikas to the session as well. Today, the session we'll be talking primarily about how Cisco went through the transformation, looked at how different CD tools and how they adopted, looked at Spinnaker and adopted Spinnaker. But before we get started, I want to make sure that we level set the audience around the OpenShift platform, which is a great CD platform, CD container management platform from Red Hat. And also I want to give a quick overview of Spinnaker, which is a CD platform that Cisco adopted to deploy to OpenShift and other clouds. With that, I'm going to turn over to Vikas to go over the OpenShift.
Okay, I was on mute. Sorry about that. So thanks, Balaji. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, DevOps.com, and thanks especially to our audience to come join us to hear the great story about continuous deployment on OpenShift and multi-clouds, right? So as part of the level set, I would like to introduce you to Red Hat OpenShift, right? As we are doing the microservices journey, my assumption is majority of people by now already know what Kubernetes is, right? And if I have to put it in a very simple terms, essentially what Kubernetes is basically set of APIs. That's how you can think about Kubernetes, right? So Kubernetes is really popular. There are, Google really got tremendous amount of success with it, and that's how it was introduced into the world, right? They were provisioning billions of containers in a week using Kubernetes technology, and when combined with cloud and DevOps, Kubernetes turned out to be a technology that can be really rolled out in enterprises, and enterprises can benefit from it, right? On one side, you can look at Kubernetes and think of it as complex technology or something that is very hard to adopt. In a very simple terms, if you look at Kubernetes, what it is a bunch of APIs, right? And very declarative. What it does is you need to tell the desired state you need from the system, and it will make sure that it maintains that state. So if you need to run a couple of containers at any given point of time, Kubernetes will do its job to make sure always 2 containers or 2 replicas two copies in simple terms are always running for that particular application, right? So bunch of APIs, think of Kubernetes as bunch of APIs that you can access using command line interface. Then you can install application on top of it using Helm, Helm application, and then you can run your applications on top of Kubernetes. So in a very simple terms, that's what Kubernetes is. So what is Red Hat OpenShift and what's OpenShift doing in this place, right? Let's go to the next slide, Balaji. So while Kubernetes gives you this platform where you can bring containers and run it, but now imagine you need a lot more than just Kubernetes. Remember, it's a set of APIs. It's a framework. You extend it for your enterprise needs. So what do you need? You need underlying operating system. You need something to automate to deploy it. You need logging, metrics, storage. You need some easier way to do command line with it. All right, and then of course the security side of the things. So who's going to think about all that? So now if you see, right, what did Red Hat do? Red Hat took that open source Kubernetes and extended to make sure that we have a product that's ready for enterprises, right? So it's about consumption, it's about management, it's about day-to operations also that you need to think about. So any organization out there, no matter what, if you take Kubernetes, you are probably going to spend cycles to extend that product, to extend the framework to make sure it's ready for your containers, right? And that's what Red Hat actually did. Because of the years of experience we have, we are bringing in all these components, integrating them together, testing and certifying it, and making it available for our, various organizations. So again, right, look at on your right hand side and look at the bottom layers of Kubernetes. So we got Ansible to help you deploy your solutions, operating system that gives you security, a networking layer, and then on the top you see command line interface, which is a wrapper on top of kubectl to make commands much more easier. And then for telemetry, storage, registry. So it's a one full product, end to end, ready for enterprises just to consume, to run their containers and scale in a secure way. Going to the next slide, Balaji. So because of tremendous amount of investment Red Hat did to make sure that Kubernetes is ready for the enterprise, these are the various things we kept in mind to help you with your day-to operations. So on the top, you are looking at automated operations, multi-tenancy, security by default, network traffic control, over-the-air updates, monitoring and chargeback, pluggable architecture. What does all that mean? I'm going to pick one of them, over-the-air updates. So imagine Kubernetes as a community releases every 3 months. Now, every time you take a patch, every time you take an upgrade, what do? You apply it. And what if that particular layer breaks something else in your Kubernetes platform, right? Because the change you are applying, it may be impacting something at the networking layer, or at the storage layer, or at the app layer, or at the underlying OS layer. So you're spending a lot of cycles to make sure that your platform is up and ready. But in case of OpenShift, we are delivering the patches just like how you get your upgrades of your mobile phone apps, be it Android Play Store or be it Apple iTunes, right? So think about that, right? You're getting your upgrades or delivered to you over the air, and you click and apply, right? It's made possible because of operator framework that we have into the solution. Similarly, pluggable architecture, we're going to talk about that, right? While we have our own technologies, we are also giving a very pluggable architecture so that amazing technologies like Spinnaker as an example, you can easily plug it in and use them to complement it to fulfill your needs. And obviously, you can then run OpenShift wherever you would want, which means bare metal, virtual machines, OpenStack platform, or any cloud of your choice. And next slide. So we were the early adopters, and we were the first one to make Kubernetes available for enterprises in a way that it can be easily consumed. And that is the reason that we have most amount of enterprise customers who are using Red Hat OpenShift, right? They're running their mission critical loads on Red Hat OpenShift for a reason, like I mentioned before, ease of usage, security, and how easily you can bring new patches, new upgrades, and then consume them. Your developers can consume them. So basically, you're achieving standardization. One more important thing is being agnostic to underlying cloud provider, right? So if you have Red Hat OpenShift, basically you have software data center with you, which means that you put your workloads in OpenShift and you run OpenShift in Amazon, Azure, Google on-premise. At any point of time, you are not changing your operations on how do you run your platform, or how do you secure it, or how do you patch it or upgrade it. It doesn't matter what cloud you are on. So it gives you tremendous amount of advantage, right? Think about this. You don't have to have your workforce or architects and developers every time learn about new way of doing things, because now you're doing on Amazon, now you're going on Azure. Let's learn about how to do things on Azure, and how do you apply your playbooks or patches or upgrades on Amazon versus how do you apply them on Azure versus Google. So you're just agnostic to that. There is one way of doing it and you do it all the time. And if you, for any reason, if you want to move them around, you can move those workloads around because they are abstracted from the underlying platform. That's one of the big, number one reason we have, so much adoption of OpenShift across the board. Next one, Balaji. So not only that, right? Obviously, you can self-manage it, you can self-run it, you can run it in the cloud of your choice, and you can still manage it. But then you need options, right? You want Amazon, you want to run it on Amazon, but you need to be managed by Red Hat. That option is available. You want to run it on Microsoft Azure, and you want Azure and Red Hat to manage it for you. That's also available, just like a software as a service, just like a cloud provider, right? Or you want, run in the Google Cloud or IBM Cloud. So you have a lot of choices, or you want to run it in the cloud, but you want to manage it yourself. Well, then that's also fine. Like I said, you can still apply patches, upgrades through over-the-air operator framework. Remember, I mentioned about Play Store and iTunes, right? So you're trying to make your life easier from that front. What flavor you want, chances are we have that option available for you, and that again helps with the adoption and making sure that you focus on building your workloads, not figuring out Kubernetes framework. Moving to the next slide. So as part of that, right, today's session is about continuous deployment, which is very critical, right? You are building microservices, you are adopting DevOps, you are adopting multi-cloud. So obviously the first thing comes in mind is, well, how do I use this platform, build my containers, and continuously roll them out? So going back to my 2 points earlier, right? First of all, we have a complete ecosystem, full-fledged solution. Second of all, we also have a pluggable architecture, which means if you like something else, you can plug it in. So within OpenShift, we have OpenShift pipelines based on Tecton. Essentially, they're running in a serverless way. You are working on something, you build a workload, and it's ready to be deployed. The pipelines will come up just like serverless, do their job, do their task, and go back down. What are you saving? You're saving a lot of in your resource consumption. You may be deploying 7 times a day. Well, then in that case, only 7 times your pipelines need to come up, do the task, move the workload across the workload, deploy them, and then shut back down. So you're saving on your resources, and you're still running all of that within the OpenShift ecosystem. So it gives you a good advantage as well as cost saving and from productivity point of view for your developers, right? Now you can very well use that OpenShift pipelines architecture, and then going to the pluggable architecture. So we are not just about Red Hat OpenShift, we are about the Red Hat whole ecosystem. There's a lot of container images certified by Red Hat on Red Hat Marketplace. So go to marketplace.redhat.com. find not only Red Hat technologies, but our partners and vendor technologies like Cockroach DB or Anaconda, as an example, or Storage OS, SysDig, and so many more. And you can just pull it in, spin it up, it starts running because it's already tested and certified, it will start running there. Similarly, we have Open Enterprise Spinnaker by OpsMax, a great vendor, great partner for us, and they provide a Spinnaker for your continuous deployment. Remember, pluggable architecture, you can plug that right in. So we will now get into how you use OpenShift, which is multi-cloud, agnostic to underlying infrastructure, and then you plug it in with your CD tool Spinnaker to achieve rollouts of thousands of applications. So having said that, I'm going to pass it on to you, Balaji.
Thanks to Vikas. Charlene, you can maybe do the poll.
Yeah, sure. We do have two polls. The first one I'm going to be launching right now. The polling question is, where are you running your containers on? You can select from we are not running containers, Red Hat OpenShift, self-managed open source Kubernetes, or public cloud Kubernetes. Go ahead and make your selection, and while the audience is doing that, I do want to remind everybody that we are taking questions for today's question and answer period. You do not have to wait for the Q&A to submit your questions. Just go to webinar control panel and submit your question at any time during our discussion today, and then when we get to the question and answer period, we will go through all of the audience questions. Okay, I'll give you guys about 5 more seconds before we close things out, and we'll take a look at the polling results. All right, closing it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, and here are the results. Looks like the majority of folks are using Red Hat OpenShift, so followed closely by self-managed open source Kubernetes. So I'm not sure if that's what you guys are hearing in the marketplace, but I guess that's really good news for Red Hat OpenShift. All right, I'm going to go ahead and push out the second polling question here. All right, the new polling question is, what are your current plans for modernizing your CD with Spinnaker platform? You can choose from not aware of it or no plans, aware of it but not evaluating, plan to evaluate, evaluating it, or already in production. Again, you can go ahead and make your selection. And while everybody is, I want to remind the audience that today's event is being recorded. So if you miss any or all of it, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. We will be sending out a link via an email post-event that you can use to watch the webinar on demand. So I will give folks about 5 more seconds again until before we close things out. All right, we're going to go ahead and close out the polling question now in 3, 2, 1. And here are the results. What are your current plans for modernizing your CD with Spinnaker platform? Looks like the big winner here is plan to evaluate. So there you go, guys. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide the results, let you get back to your conversation.
Got it. Thanks, Charlene. I think appreciate doing the polls. Yeah, I think great to see the interest, obviously, in OpenShift. I think 1/3 of you are using OpenShift already. That's great. And you know, the others should look at it. On the Spinnaker side, looks like 1/3 are not aware of it, or you know, are really early stages. And you know, and then also maybe another 20% is sort of in the evaluation phase. Hopefully, today I want to try to give you level set the knowledge and hopefully motivate you to look at Spinnaker. And more importantly, I think with Cisco's example and what kind of success they had, hopefully you feel you have enough knowledge to look at it more closely. With that, let me give you a quick overview of Spinnaker for people who have not spent time on it. Spinnaker is basically a cloud-native continuous delivery platform. It was originally open sourced by Netflix. It was internally used by Netflix. Back in the time, they used to do 4,000 deployments a day. Obviously, that's a lot of deployments, and they need a way to build something for themselves that alert them to do these automated deployments continuously throughout the day. Now, obviously, they are doing more deployments, but that's where the genesis of Spinnaker was about 4 to 5 years ago. And since then, the community has taken the open source project and added to it. Like AWS joined in, Google joined in, and Microsoft joined in, as well as vendors like us, essentially help to make a great enterprise-grade product that has been deployed world over. And we have some slides, and you can also look at some of the customers that have adopted Spinnaker. So why do people adopt Spinnaker? Number one, it provides you an ability to deploy to multiple clouds without any scripting. And that's something very, very amazing for many people, because you can choose between EKS or GKE or AKS or OpenShift or any of these tools without having to create custom deploy and rollback, all of those aspects of deployment. It's out of the box. And also you can automate end-to-end from all the way from Git check-in or repository change check-in or a registry check-in. You can automate all of the process of deployment end-to-end from code to production as part of the thing. You can actually provide controls as well as part of it. It's not just set up. You can provide controls, and many of the steps are available out of the box for you. So you don't have to write any scripts to make it happen. The other, one of the big things about enabling this fast deployments, obviously you are not probably like Netflix doing 8,000 deployments a day. Maybe you deploy a few times a week. But the critical part comes in is when you increase the speed or you automate end-to-end, you need to also make it safe deployment. If you're deploying once a month, you obviously have enough time to check the balances, check and balances what is happening to the release. But if you deploy multiple times a day, multiple microservices, it becomes very challenging. And so you need to have built-in mechanisms, safety mechanisms to make sure that things go safely. Things like canary deployment, blue, green, or rolling update comes out of the box. And also you have automated verification aspects that allows you to verify the new deployment in an automated fashion to avoid problems. And last but not the least is visibility and control. As we have, like Cisco, for example, they have thousands of developers, thousands of applications. There's no way to control, if you don't have visibility and know what's happening, it's very difficult to control this kind of, so much releases happening all the time. So having visibility and control is very important, and Spinnaker provides that framework. Obviously, this, that's just a product. Now, there are a lot of adoption. There are maybe 3,000 enterprises have adopted Spinnaker, the open source version or our version, for example. Obviously, including Cisco, one of the customers we're going to talk today, one of the largest adopters of Cisco of the Spinnaker product, along with Google, JPMC, Standard Chartered banks, Sony, PlayStation, Pinterest, Airbnb, so many people, Home Depot, Target, you name it, have Spinnaker adopted as part of their deployments. And many of them are actually using OpenShift. One of the things I've seen as an ecosystem partner of Red Hat is that when we talk to large enterprises named Global 2000 or Global 5000, the very large accounts, they have all adopted OpenShift. And obviously, since they have a variety of use cases, Spinnaker fits into that very nicely. One of the benefits of Spinnaker is an open source project, just like Kubernetes is. It's an open source project. That means that a healthy open source ecosystem is important. So there are over 10,000 community members, active community members on Spinnaker, and also contributions from, like I said, Netflix obviously is where it started, but now contributions from AWS and Google and OpsMx sort of makes the solution, open source project, very healthy project. So there are three primary use cases for obviously somebody who are looking at OpenShift or Kubernetes, that let's say, why Spinnaker? Why not I use obviously OpenShift pipeline, or I have Jenkins, I have some other tools that I already have. Why bother with Spinnaker? Number one, I think if you're doing OpenShift and if you have multiple OpenShift clusters and you want to be able to deploy your applications across clusters, so basically deployment over a federated number of clusters, Spinnaker obviously allows you to have thousands of accounts, thousands of namespaces, thousands of clusters that you connect to. And other part is there are multi-cloud we talked about earlier. If you want to have one single tool that works and you can automate it for not only OpenShift but also to other kind of deployment options, then Spinnaker is a choice for you. And that allows you to this multi-cloud, similar fashion for all your developers. Different teams don't have to use a different process to figure out how to do it. They can all use the same process. And containers are obviously one kind of workload. I know that even within Cisco, we're going to talk about with Anil, and there's other kinds of workloads. Obviously, VMs are supported, Lambdas, or serverless is supported. And if you want to use infra updates through Spinnaker, it's also supported. So there's a lot of things that that Spinnaker provides it, and you should consider for OpenShift use case. So how we come in as an OpsMx, we are one of the leading continuous delivery solution provider. Our vision has been to be able to allow you to deliver software without human intervention. What that means is not only providing you Spinnaker-based automated deployment options, allowing you to eliminate other human steps involved in a typical continuous delivery process. And that's where we really shine. As a team, we have over 90 plus people and growing widely globally, and also a heavy contributor into the Spinnaker project. And I've helped a lot of large customers like Cisco today, and who have multiple requirements in their CD process, and we understand the depth of enterprise deployments, and we have expertise in helping customers. And obviously, we are a Red Hat partner. They have been great to us, IBM and Red Hat partners. They've been great to us in terms of supporting us in their ecosystem. Very quickly, I want to give you 2 minutes on what is our Spinnaker, and we are like the OpenShift for Kubernetes. We are like this enterprise version for the open source Spinnaker, right? So if you think of it that way, we essentially add value to the open source Spinnaker. Spinnaker by itself is great. It's used widely. Open source Spinnaker itself is used widely. But some of the things that we add value is that, for example, allow you to do self-service onboarding of users, release management, something that if you want to do a release management, not like automated deployments, but do planned release management, or maybe you want to do infra updates. You want to set up your test environment before you deploy your artifacts to the test environment, and then you tear down the test environment, maybe using like something like a Terraform or Ansible as part of your Spinnaker pipeline. You can do that. And also, one of the things we talked about is our vision is around eliminating human intervention. So what is the human elements that happens typically in a CI/CD workflow is around verification. Is my application compliant? Can I audit what happened? Is my CD process secure? Is my secret secure? Application secure? And is my update, actually the new software release that I just released, is it actually safe to release? How do I verify automatically? And also things around approvals. Like approvals is actually one of the blockers of continuous deployment. Essentially now somebody is actually making a deployment decision or approval decision. And how do I make it automated if possible, or give enough information so that the approver has information to make the right approval quickly? So these are some of the things we value add. Today I want to spend more time starting now to talk with Anil and talk about how they deployed Spinnaker at Cisco. And if you have any questions with us or you want to try it out, you can actually go to operatorhub.io or the Red Hat Marketplace and download our operator and install Spinnaker. It takes about 10 minutes to install Spinnaker for this use case, and you'll be up and running in about 10 minutes. What the Spinnaker operator, as you can imagine, it does is it basically installs a specified version of Spinnaker in a Kubernetes cluster or OpenShift, for example. You can specify your HA requirements around how available you want the Spinnaker to be. Spinnaker is a Kubernetes application by itself, so you need to tell how you want it to be. And also you can connect to multiple databases for runtime data as well as the config data. So we can allow our operator will take care of all of that for you. With that, I want to really spend the remaining time on this call trying to talk with Cisco on how they did the transformation. So I'm very excited to have Anil on the call. He's one of our strongest user and has been a very advanced user of OpenShift, or they've been using OpenShift long time, I think, as far as I can tell. And And 2-3 years ago, they did this transformation of their CD to a modern CD for their OpenShift adoption as well as multi-cloud adoption. And with that, I'm going to talk to Anil and as a fire chat format, and he can give us how was his journey. So with Anil, why don't you talk about what's some of the background information, how big is Cisco's enterprise IT was when you started, and what are some of the things you're looking for from a challenges that you're trying to solve during the time?
Yeah, thanks, Balaji. First of all, I want to start by saying that our team is called Engineering IT, DevOps Service as a team. So our primary focus is to provide a continuous delivery experience across all the development teams, and not only development teams, but also a lot of infrastructure teams. Now they are trying to deploy infra as a code. And apart from that, we very closely collaborate with the security organizations and the compliance and risk. That is because that is our primary one, to make sure that any code that goes into production, we make sure that it's all on top of they maintain all the compliance and gates for that. So that's what we do as a team. And yeah, I mean, we started our journey in terms of continuously back in 2015. You're aware of that. Uh, and we started looking for look at some of the solutions that are there in the market. So that's how we started our journey almost back in 2015. We started our journey on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think I want to also you to walk us through some of your what are your requirements were when you started that. I know that it's a large set of users you support, and so thousands of developers. So what are some of the requirements or portfolio that you had there?
Yeah, I mean, if you see the landscape, Cisco is a broad product portfolio. We have diverse platforms. We have applications deploying into internal cloud. We have applications deploying to on-prem and public cloud. Now SaaS is coming to picture. And apart from this, we also have other 13 platforms within Cisco that we provide. And our primary focus when we started our journey was for IT, Cisco IT, and that's where we cater into deployments for all the developments. We had almost like more than 1,000 applications. We have around 2,000 developers, which we cater, and we enable the whole CI/CD pipeline for them. It's a big landscape if you see, right? So it's diverse platform, the different patterns of deployments, different development life cycles. So there's a lot of process, governance, tools involved in that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think you were doing was obviously using some legacy tools to make it happen. As you wanted to maybe adopt containers, you started looking at other options. Maybe let's talk about sort of some of the challenges that you had with trying to support all of your variety of applications, and how you went about evaluating different options for your CI/CD requirements.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of challenges, I mean, it's we constantly look for improving continuous delivery. That is, you cannot change that aspect of the whole delivery experience that we provide. But I think one of the biggest things was to look at a better solution because of the rise of SaaS platform, and a lot of applications were migrating into internal and public cloud. That became as one of the workloads for us. It became quite challenging for us. And as application teams and the development teams were moving into these areas, they were looking for a lot of insights, data-driven information. They were also looking for performance, speed of deployments. And not only from a development aspect, from an infrastructure or the platform aspect, we were also thinking about how do we optimize resources, because as the platforms were increasing, we had to look at how do we optimize, go in the serverless architecture, or how do we enable them, right? So those were some of the challenges or the requirements that came into us to enable us to look at how we deliver or transform this whole experience.
Got it. And I think, yeah, continue on. I think how you look at transformation and what we're looking to do.
Yeah, this is one of the simple way to predict how a pipeline would look in a simplified version. But though it looks very simplified, but there's a lot of automation that's gone beyond. There's a lot of integration that has happened. We look at all the four pillars of the DevOps, that is continuous integration, visibility, deployment, and security. Now, DevSecOps is the main thing that's going on. So, but apart from this, we also look at how we enable release orchestration. When you're deploying an enterprise application, I think there's a big challenge that how do you get all the chunk of applications that are deploying to make sure they're all part of the same release and the business goal is met, right? So that is where we started looking at how we transform the whole experience. But I think the main criteria was that we wanted to provide a single experience which will take care of all the governance, all the SOX, all the compliance, the testing aspects in a single pipeline. So that's where we try to look at how we simplify that. That's where our transformation journey started.
I think one of your other requirements were like, how do you enable self-service, right? As well, essentially,
that's correct.
Because you have so many users, so many applications, you know, trying to make custom work for every one of them is just not going to work.
That's right. I think we had a lot of, I mean, in terms of if you look at applications onboarding into the tool chain, so they had to look for how do they go and procure this tool set. So we started looking at one shop kind of a thing where we provided to provide a transactional experience where any developer from any platform go and pick their choice of tool chain. I think that was one of the critical things that we were looking for.
Right, and so you evaluated multiple tools, and maybe talk about some of the criteria of why you thought Spinnaker was a great choice for your requirements.
Yeah, I mean, when we started our journey back in 2015, when we looked at the CNCF landscape, Spinnaker was one of the players there, and it was still maturing in terms of its ability. And one of the, as you saw, our transformation journey had specific requirements where we wanted to make sure that the application could be hosted on any cloud, right? I think Spinnaker had that ability. It was a cloud native application, which a microservice driven architecture, which can fit in any of the clouds. I think that was the primary one. And the secondary one was we also were looking for how can we enable multi-cloud deployments in a single experience, right? So I think we can spin up multiple pipelines which can deploy to internal cloud, external cloud, and the other platforms as well, right? And not only that, I think we were also looking for the other solutions like can the tool do deployment strategies? Can it fit the bill, right? Like the Highlander, red, black, blue, green deployments or canary analysis. So that was something which we were looking for, and also not only that, we were also looking for something which where we can enable the gates and policies within the pipelines where the developer doesn't need to worry about it. Rather, we hook up with our own policy engines or the governance engines where every deployment goes through meets all the gating policies and criteria so that the deployment is seamless and developer doesn't need to worry about all this stuff. So that was the idea where Spinnaker fit a little bit on that. And last not but the least, but the API driven, that was the main key thing where we wanted some tool which can have the API integration so that we can integrate with our internal systems, right? So to pull in, to update data and those aspects. So that these were the criteria that really fit well for us in terms of Spinnaker.
Right. Yeah. I think I want to just highlight. I think obviously Spinnaker is a pipeline as a core, right? You can maintain everything in pipeline and Git and version control it and all of that expected things people expect nowadays. And also, I think one of the things you definitely mentioned to me back in the time was that open source was one of your criteria as well. Like, essentially, you're not going to go into another sort of a locked-in version. You want to have at least an ability to have the open source community and the velocity of open source community to do, bring in the best practices from, the world-leading organization like Netflix and Google, and bring into your Cisco's use cases, be able to go at that velocity.
Yes, I think one of the we looked at work with the Netflix and the Google, Andy Grover and team to make sure that we had the right roadmap I mean, we had our own roadmap where exactly this product is going towards, right? So specifically on the Kubernetes, once the Google joined, we got to know that this is going to be on the Kubernetes side. So it's going on the right map. And the community is now, we see that a lot of people are there, a lot of companies have joined. So the community is very powerful in terms of that. I think that really helps us.
Yeah, one of the things when I started looking at Spinnaker about 4 years ago, I was really surprised at how mature it was back then, right? In terms of its ability to have these concepts of pipelines, the ability to have control, and the ability to have no script-based deployments, all in open source. And I think many people who are in this call who hasn't seen Spinnaker or played with it will realize that it's a great tool that you should consider. And you can download it for free at spinnaker.io, or you can go to our OpsMx.com to download a free version or an open source version, for example, and really play with it.
Yeah, so Anil, I'll ask one question, right? So just for the sake of audience, was Spinnaker your first choice, or was it a migration from some other in-house tooling you did or tried before ultimately finalizing on Spinnaker?
So we did have other products which we still use it for our deployments to other platforms, the legacy platforms, and Spinnaker was one of the choices to bring in. So we also looked at other choices like Jenkins. There were a lot of other players as well, but at that time they didn't fit the bill. But I think it's slowly picking up. But I think Spinnaker has grown a lot better in terms of the in terms of the community. The contribution is a lot in terms of the features.
So the innovation, the feature functionality it's bringing in is really something you see the value in. The second question I would have for you is, and very quickly, right? Now you see OpenShift working, you see Spinnaker working. Of course, you have the enterprise versions of those, right? When it comes to day two operations, how would you say your experience is, right? There's a community side of the things, which many people seem to think that community is the way to go. And of course, which I kind of disagree unless you really want to be an engineer in the Kubernetes side of the thing, right? So you bring the enterprise version of Spinnaker, you bring the enterprise version of OpenShift. What would you say your experience on enterprise versus community overall, and what would you like to tell audience about that?
I mean, it's been a learning, it's been a journey. We started as a POC pilot, look at this tool, how exactly it is. We didn't onboard it on a day one. We didn't have a big bang approach. It took us a while. It has been a learning. I wouldn't say it's not a easy going task, but it's been a learning. But as we are understanding how exactly it is, I keep saying that it's a microservice driven architecture, and it's a very simple built application where you can understand it's not just you want to rely on the community, but you also need to have something like the OpsMx or somebody to help you out with that. So there are things which helped us, but I think it's been in the adoption stage. I will say we are still working on that, and it's still in the adoption stage. But yeah, it's there were challenges, but I think as we have worked with the community, I mean, I do appreciate the community because there are a lot of features that we came across that were fixed by the community, and the response has been very quick in terms of the actions that we have.
Okay.
Yeah. So speaking of adoption, Anil, so how did you deploy Spinnaker? I know that you're hosted on OpenShift. Maybe talk a little bit more about that. Now that you selected Spinnaker and you want to run it in production after obviously you did a pilot, but after that you're running in production. What are some of the thought process you had in that?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. We started with a single production enterprise Spinnaker kind of a thing on OpenShift, which was providing services to the whole of our Cisco IT application teams. But then as teams started evaluating and started pushing their applications into Spinnaker, we saw that there were a few challenges in terms of scaling and performance. But I think we worked we fixed a couple of things. We did contribute some of the things to the community. But right now we have re-architectured the whole stuff. We see that there's a big improvement when we spin up multi instances of Spinnaker. So currently we have 16 instances running on our production, which is not only a single data center but across 3 regions, because we are high on compliance and risk and regulations, right? So we have resiliency in terms of hedging into multiple data centers. We also have multiple instances where developers can spin up and play around with the Spinnaker instance. So, but it's been a journey. We did have challenges when we spin up more than 5,000 or 8,000 namespaces. It did have performance challenges back around 2 years back, but it's improved a lot right now.
Yeah, I think to Vikas' point, I think working with somebody like OpsMx, we definitely help you, as you go through those scaling challenges or issues. I mean, it's an open source community. It's just like, Kubernetes 1.0 was what it was like a few years ago, but then now it's much better. I mean, things evolve over time, and I think as a community, we will work to make it better. Great. So now let's assume now you've evaluated it, you chose Spinnaker, you have deployed Spinnaker itself, in production. Now, what are some of the best practices for onboarding applications? Specifically, I think you had obviously initially the whole set of applications you migrated were to OpenShift, right? OpenShift platform. So maybe talk about some of the things you went through in trying to onboard applications to Spinnaker and OpenShift.
Yeah, I think one of the main criteria was to simplify and expedite the procurement of one CD tool or a pre-packaged pipeline for a developer. I think if you see, we built in a beautiful transactional web experience layer for software developers about all the tool sets. So that's where, as a user or as a customer, I can go and procure any deployment tools using our console. I think that was a big gain for us. And not only that, we also wanted to have that rich data-driven in terms of the procurement of the pipeline, and which was more like we wanted to provide that personalized experience as well when they go procure an end-to-end pipeline, right? So that's where the analytics came into picture. We had quality analytics, we had the security analytics, we had the release analytics, resource analytics, where exactly they're deploying, what are the target machines, right? So we build these 2 things across all the 2 chain. I think this is one of the biggest gain or biggest product that helped us bring the whole experience to the level that we were expecting to the developer community.
Great. Yeah, I think the making this self-service is important as you can use templates. Use Spinnaker, and you're able to compliant templates essentially allow developers don't have to worry about specifying, configuring these pipelines manually. They're able to leverage your existing or IT approved or whatever DevOps team approved pipeline templates that you can use.
And not only that, I think as a user, I can go and procure a stack, which could be for internal platform, which is running on OpenShift, or a cloud platform, or the other 13 platforms, and the experience is consistent in the same. Right.
Right.
I think that was the big benefit for us.
Yeah, exactly. Great, makes sense. So where are you with Spinnaker today? I guess from adoption perspective, I think your 1,000+ applications, obviously hundreds of thousands of developers using it. Can you just maybe give us a little bit of how has your life improved? Going with Spinnaker. How did you get that adoption going?
Yeah, we're still in the adoption. I mean, I wouldn't say we have adopted fully, but we are still in the adoption stage. We have thousands of applications, software applications running on our pipelines. We have almost 600 average deployments happening in a week or a couple of days. But we are still in the adoption stage, I would say. But I think one of the biggest thing is because of these experience that we brought in, there are a lot of developer community that we internally built, which are giving me continuous feedback in terms of how we can improve our stuff, right? So that is helping us. We also ran a couple of IT hackathons where a lot of individuals came there, they try to break in things. That's where we try to look at how we can break our whole toolchain, see what is the limit that we can hit. I think that was a couple of good learnings that we had, and one of the best part is we have built-in governance. When I say built-in governance, it's an automated built-in governance where the developer does not need to worry when he's deploying to production, when he's taking his change to a production, his SOX compliance is met, or his PCI DSS compliance, or any of the governance or the risk or the security is met. So he doesn't need to worry about it. So all those gates and the quality gates and the governance is met before he takes it to production. That's where I think it's picking up as I speak right now, but I think it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I think Cisco, I think just as a context, right? 1,000+ application that you have to is a lot for a lot of companies, but Cisco is a huge company, right? You have 10,000, 20,000 developers, and now that you're going into as part of an engineering DevOps organization, right? So you have a lot of opportunity to grow beyond your initial set of applications. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and the primary focus was IT. We wanted to make it IT use it, and then we start looking at the different organizations that we have. And I think there's a lot of interest that has grown, and people are looking for evaluating these things, and we are working with them as we speak.
Right, absolutely. I think that's why I think we have been part of your journey, right, from demo to POC to pilot, and now you're 1,000. We definitely want to be working to try to new use cases. I think we will talk next. I think very quickly is looking ahead. What do you think that you want to go with Spinnaker beyond the current growth that you already achieved?
I think we have leveraged Spinnaker to a level where we understand how exactly we can use it. I think because I keep saying that because of the rise of SaaS platforms, or even if you go on the cloud, there are a lot of things that you do in terms of your platforms. It could be storage deployments, it could be your lambdas, or it could be any of those things, right? So that's where we are looking at how we can leverage the custom stage that Spinnaker provides, because that's where the power of containers comes into picture, where you can have the minimalistic resource that you can use, where you spin up container and then you kind of go towards a serverless architecture, right? So that's where our focus has been, to provide multiple custom stages to multiple workloads. So that's where we're working on in terms of for the developers, right?
So when you say multiple workloads, obviously it's the containers, VMs, and serverless. But also, I think when you talk about SaaS platforms, that's like the snowflakes, right? Teradata's of the world, and those kind of things. What you're talking about, right?
That's right. I think those are the platforms I'm talking about in terms of Hadoop or Snowflake. These are the SaaS products that you have, and we're also high on looking at the policy engine, OPA policy engine. I think we want to look at how we can bring the governance or provide an experience to the developer where they can go and edit and modify their own pipelines, but not budge on the governance part, right? So gates and policies should be there. So that is where we're looking for. And we are also looking for the vault integrations. Now everybody wants to manage their secrets in the vault or any of those secret management tools. They don't want to be part of the pipeline, or don't want to be part of a config or a Git repository, right? You don't want to keep those stuff. So we are high on those risk and security, right? And not, again, I mean, you called out, right, the SaaS platforms. I think that is the primary stuff that we are looking
absolutely.
at.
Yeah, I think these are the things that really makes Spinnaker viable or very, very interesting for enterprise, because one is just the active deployment. I think that's just the table stakes, right? Every tool has it. The ability to do all of these other things for enterprise is complicated, as Cisco's, for the right reason, because there's, and also you're a good example. So is the banks. Banks have a lot more, regulations that etc. that they work on. So some of these large organizations see Spinnaker as a great tool with a lot of primitives and a lot of ability to extend to the different use cases. And we at OpsMx, we try to provide a strict wrap version, so to say, so that you're able to take advantage of all of that. So thank you so much, Anil. I think it was very useful. We have maybe a few minutes to maybe for Q&A. I want to wrap up this session But if you want to try Spinnaker, obviously you can go to Operator Hub, or you can obviously email us at hello@opsmx.com, and we're happy to support you with a free trial. And obviously, if you want to learn more about Red Hat products and solutions, you can go to the link here, team.openshift.com/middleware, where you can get hands-on learning from different tools. We have about 6 minutes for a Q&A. Charlene, I'll let you maybe facilitate that part of the session.
Sure. We actually only have about 3 minutes for Q&A, but let's go ahead and try to get to as many as we can. So here's one question for you. There are 3 independent microservices, this scenario, S1, S2, and S3, each running on different clouds, AWS, Azure, and OpenShift. Can a single pipeline be used by a Jenkins shared library that has a deployment stage which involves Spinnaker, and each service is deployed in its respective cloud environments? In other words, can Spinnaker act as an abstraction for cloud providers so that the microservice and pipeline are agnostic to the cloud platform?
Absolutely, that is the primary use case for Spinnaker, is the ability to deploy. Within one single pipeline, you can have different deployment targets, and as many as you want. And it obviously abstracts the underlying cloud providers with something called a cloud driver. That's an abstraction layer, so you don't have to worry about how do I deploy, resize clusters, roll back clusters, change the load balancer, change the firewalls. All of them are done for you, so absolutely yes.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one more question. This one is for you, Anil. Which distribution of Jenkins is used? CBC or something else?
Yeah, we are using multi-pipeline branch Jenkins. We are like on the cloud-based stuff. So that's the version we are using.
Okay, all right, great. So let's try one more before we close things out. Has Cisco open sourced any of its pipeline or CD code?
Not really. We are not open source as such, but we have contributed to the community in terms of some of the challenges that we had in terms of scaling that. We did provide some of the changes that we were expecting that has been being provided to the community.
Yeah, there's the 2 things. Right? One is the Spinnaker, something related to Spinnaker. We work with them to open source that part back to Spinnaker, something proprietary or something that they internally use. That's obviously their own property.
Okay, all right. And then last question before we close things out. What version of Spinnaker is used with OpsMx?
We are fully mainstream upstream compliant, so the latest version is what we are using, the 20.22, 1.22.
All right, great. Well, we are 3 minutes to the top of the hour, so unfortunately that's all the time that we have for questions. But I do want to thank everybody who did submit questions, and if we didn't get to your question during the question and answer period, please know that these fine folks will be getting a copy of all of the questions that came in, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to follow up with you offline to get your question answered. Also want to remind the audience real quick that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the event, or if you just want to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website, so you can always go look for it there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay, I did mention at the top of the hour that we would be doing a drawing for 4 $100 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get that done. Our first big winner today is Callie A. Congratulations, Callie. Second winner today is Carlos M. Congratulations, Carlos. Third winner today is Freddie B. Congratulations, Freddie. And our final winner today is Nita T. Congratulations, Nita. We'll be following up with all 4 of you offline to get your Amazon gift cards over to you. So please check your inbox. And if you don't see it there, please check your spam folder. Balaji, Anil, Vikas, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. Great presentation, really appreciate it. And judging from the questions that came in from the audience, they got a lot out of it too. So thanks again, really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.